Welcome back to This is Baseball. Congratulations on getting through the offseason because baseball is back. We have games starting on Wednesday. The New York Yankees are taking on the San Francisco Giants on Netflix, and then the rest of the league will get their seasons going on Thursday and Friday. But we did it, and we have a few storylines to get into. I think the obvious one is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Los Angeles Dodgers, more specifically the back-to-back World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, are looking to three-peat. The Los Angeles Dodgers, should they accomplish that in 2026, would be the first team to repeat since the New York Yankees of 1998, 1999, and 2000, who beat the Padres, Braves, and Mets in that World Series run. Now, if you thought the Dodgers were a juggernaut roster in 2025 and in 2024, well, they somehow managed to improve their roster even further, signing Kyle Tucker to a deal and signing closer Edwin Diaz to shore up their bullpen. If you were looking at the Dodgers, really their kind of one weakness was their bullpen, and adding Edwin Diaz has pretty much plugged that hole that they had. So the overwhelming World Series favorite is the Los Angeles Dodgers, which makes sense. I think the Blue Jays have a good a chance as anybody to make it back. The Blue Jays were so close to beating the Dodgers last year, came up short in extra innings in that 7-game series in 2025. I think, though, looking at this season, it is who is going to take down the Los Angeles Dodgers. We have a lot of other teams, obviously 29 to be exact, that are looking to etch their name in history and be the team that people remember as the ones that took down the Los Angeles Dodgers. So let's look at some teams that are in contention and are looking to win a World Series of their own. I want to start with the New York Mets, a team that spends about as much as the Dodgers and is always trying to be at the top. They made some noise this offseason. They lost Pete Alonso to the Orioles in free agency, but they made a trade with the Rangers, got Marcus Semien to be their everyday second baseman, sharing the middle infield with Francisco Lindor, and they got a huge bat in Bo Bichette to be their third baseman. So they also traded with the Chicago White Sox for Luis Robert Jr. He's going to be in their outfield. So you can make a case for the Mets that they are better in 2026 than they are in 2025. So notable names on this Mets roster: Luis Robert Jr., just talked about, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Bo Bichette, Marcus Semien, Francisco Alvarez, Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean. Nolan McLean actually pitched in the WBC final for Team USA and did all right there. But I like the Mets this season as a team to watch out for to take down the Dodgers. The next team that we're going to look at, we're actually going to stay in New York, but we're going to go to the American League side and look at the Yankees. The Yankees have been trying to get that championship. They haven't won one since 2009, and they have high expectations and a lot of pressure on them. And I like the Yankees as well. Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Garrett Cole is going to be back as well. If they can keep their pitching staff healthy, I like them. Obviously, they have Aaron Judge, who is the best hitter in the league, the best player in the league, not named Shohei Ohtani. A big story for him as well will be his health, too. So keep everybody healthy. Yankees have an opportunity. What's weird about the Yankees, though, is they might not be the best team in their division anymore, because you have the Toronto Blue Jays, who finally kind of broke through last year and went to the World Series, had a really hot second half in 2025, took the Dodgers 7 games, ended up coming up short, but are set up to go on another run in 26. Blue Jays roster: Dylan Cease, who they signed in the offseason, Kevin Gossman, Shane Bieber, brought back Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer, great veteran to have around. Don't know how much he has from an impact standpoint on the mound, being north of 40. They did lose Bo Bichette in free agency, but they have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who is one of the best players in the league. George Springer. They unfortunately aren't going to have Anthony Santander again for probably about half the year. So somebody they picked up in free agency before last season that has just unfortunately been injury prone since going to Toronto. I think, though, in the American League, one of the teams I'm most excited about is the Seattle Mariners. If you listen to this podcast enough, you know that I've been low on the Mariners for multiple years. Never believed in them. Finally kind of broke through last year, similar to the Blue Jays. And I'm excited about what they have. Pitching rotation: Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Luis Castillo. And then Cal Raleigh, who a lot of people might argue should have won MVP last year, had one of the best seasons ever from a catching standpoint. Josh Naylor will be back in Seattle. They picked up Brendan Donovan from the St. Louis Cardinals. He's going to be likely their third baseman. J.P. Crawford at shortstop. Randy Arozarena. And somebody that I think kind of got overlooked last season, who I think if you want to make a dark horse run at MVP candidate, it's Julio Rodriguez, their center fielder. I think this might be his year. And you have all of these names work out, and you have a really scary Seattle Mariners team. And looking at the rest of the division, Houston's not the powerhouse that they once were. Texas, I don't really know what they have going on. They had great pitching in 2025, but they could not quite get their offense going. They moved away from Marcus Semien. Angels and A's you aren't worried about. So AL West is the Seattle Mariners to lose, and they went to the ALCS last season, and maybe they're the team that gets to the World Series and takes down the Dodgers, assuming the Dodgers are there. Now, I want to talk Kansas City Royals because, yeah, I spend a lot of time talking Royals, and they are my hometown team, and I try not to have homer takes with them, but I am very enthusiastic about the Kansas City Royals in 2026. Just kind of rewinding a little bit, 2024 had the 30-game improvement, earned a wild card berth, beat the Baltimore Orioles in the wild card round, and then lost in the division series. Kind of had similar expectations in 2025 and came up way short, had a lot of injuries on the pitching staff, still managed to have one of the top 10 pitching staffs in the league, but their offense, unfortunately, just was bottom 5 in basically every statistical category. And the Royals made a lot of changes. They fired some of their hitting staff, brought in new hitting staff. They kept Alex Zumwalt, which that's something that we will monitor closely this season, but brought in Connor Dawson from the Milwaukee Brewers and Marcus Thomas, who has kind of been around the block. He's worked with Shohei Ohtani and has worked with Aaron Judge as well. He was a former player back in the day, so he has the experience there and has the knowledge and the resume, if you will. And I'm happy with the Royals because I know old Royals would have just kind of run it back and said, hey, it just wasn't our year this year, but we believe in who we have. And they didn't do that. They made the changes that were necessary and realized that they are in a competitive window and need to capitalize. And I just want to look at kind of what we're working with the Kansas City Royals. So this is their projected rotation. Cole Ragans, who is going to be their opening day starter. Seth Lugo, who signed an extension in the middle of last season. He was kind of in the conversation of being traded away at the deadline. Michael Wacha. Chris Bubich, coming back, has had a great spring and looks healthy and is going to be an important part of this rotation. And then Noah Cameron in year 2. How will Noah Cameron show up in year 2 after being the 4th place AL Rookie of the Year? Bullpen, Carlos Estevez, going to be the closer. He's had a little bit of a rocky spring, so some questions as to whether or not he would get that closer role, but it looks like he's still going to be the guy. And speaking of this bullpen, this is a much improved bullpen from last season. You still have Lucas Erceg, John Schreiber, but made a trade with the Phillies, brought Matt Strahm, who has been in the Royals system before and is going to be a great member of the bullpen. He's going to be put into a lot of high leverage situations, similar to Nick Mears, who came over in another trade with the Brewers. And the Royals actually made a trade since Angel Zerpa over there. And Royals got Mears and Isaac Collins, who we'll talk about in just a second. But looking at the lineup, Salvador Perez will be back. Carter Jensen, who is going to be an important piece of this lineup, whether he is going to be the DH or he's going to get a handful of days behind the plate. But you liked what Carter Jensen brought in the little time that we saw him in 2025. He was an on-base machine. Salvador Perez came off of one of his best seasons, 30-plus home runs and 100-plus RBIs. Same with Vinny Pasquantino, coming off of a career year and signing a little extension with the Royals, a 2-year extension, avoiding some arbitration. Jack Caglione, who didn't have the year we had hoped for in 25 as a rookie, but coming off a spring training in a World Baseball Classic appearance that was pretty good, and having some different hitting coaches, I think, will help him. I think he came in with very, very high expectations and a lot of pressure on him, and I think the pressure is off a little bit. Moving on, Jonathan India, same thing. Royals 1-year deal with him, traded with the Reds last year to bring him over, sent Brady Singer over there, and didn't quite get what we were hoping out of him. And now that the Royals seem to know how to use them, because they were using him in a leadoff role, they were kind of, I think, feeling like, okay, we made this big trade, we have to have him in the leadoff spot to get on base ahead of Bobby Witt Jr. And just once they moved him to the bottom of the lineup and kind of messed with that, Jonathan India kind of took off a little bit. Michael Garcia, breakout season, All-Star, Gold Glove, 25, WBC Finals MVP for Team Venezuela. I think he's fired up and signed that 5-year extension with the Royals. Can't wait to see what he does in 26. Bobby Witt Jr., I mean, even in a down year, he was one of the 5 best players in the league last year. Talked about Julio Rodriguez being an MVP candidate. I think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be in that conversation as well. Isaac Collins, just talked about another on-base machine, and he was a top 5 in Rookie of the Year votes for the National League with the Brewers. Kind of helps with some of the questions the Royals had with their outfield and offense in 25. Kind of fixes that. Isaac Collins, Lane Thomas, Kyle Isbell, Jack Caglione, Starling Marte, a late addition in spring, just another veteran presence that I think will be very pleasantly surprised with what he brings. But I'm excited about the Royals. I think just talking about the WBC for a minute, it was very Royals heavy as far as who was showing out. You looked at Team Italy, and it was Vinny Pasquantino, the captain, had the 3 home run game, the first time that's happened in WBC history. Jack Caglione hitting monster home runs as well. And the espresso shots. Team USA, Bobby Witt Jr. making absolutely insane plays that managed to get Paul Skeens, who is just always straight-faced, to smile. And then Team Venezuela winning the first WBC in their country's history behind Salvador Perez, Luander Avila, and your World Baseball Classic MVP, Michael Garcia. If they do what they did in the WBC, all those players that I mentioned, this is going to be a really good season for the Royals. And I think this might be what they needed. Hey, we've tasted some success. We've tasted that big game, important game energy. We want that for our hometown team. And I expect the Royals to not only make a run for the American League West, but make a run for the World Series. Why not? So those are my handful of teams that I, right now on the surface, before we've ever played a game, feel really strongly about as far as who can take down the Los Angeles Dodgers, because I think that is kind of the mindset. It is the Dodgers are public enemy number 1. An important date coming up in this calendar is December 1st, and it is when the current CBA expires. And it is pretty much inevitable that there is going to be some sort of lockout at the end of this season. And it's going to be a rough road between MLB and the Players Association to put together a deal that everyone can be happy with. Because one of the major sticking points right now is the imbalance, the economic imbalance in Major League Baseball in comparison to other sports. And the big conversation and the big push is salary cap and getting that competitive balance back by putting everybody at the same threshold as far as what they can spend, similar to other sports. And it seems like there's a lot of momentum for this to happen finally. If you remember in the 90s, this is what caused a lot of missed games to happen, was the conversation of a salary cap. And the addition of Edwin Diaz and Kyle Tucker, I think, Kyle Tucker was kind of the tipping point of, the Dodgers did it again, and they have just an absolutely absurd payroll. They have Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Kyle Tucker, Edwin Diaz, and the list just kind of goes on and on of this insane roster that could take on the best of the best at any given moment. And I think the mission is it's everybody versus the Dodgers, and I think the Dodgers understand that it is the Dodgers versus everybody. And we will monitor the CBA talk because I know that it'll be a big talking point throughout the season, obviously because it has to be. But I am incredibly excited, enthusiastic about 2026 MLB season. Thank you for listening today. We will see you back next week.